Good morning.
Hello. Good morning. How are
Hello.
you
Good
all?
morning. I am fantastic.
Mhm.
Happy day after the long weekend. If you are in many parts of Canada in particular, it might have been called Family Day. If you're in Manitoba, it's happy the end of Louis Riel Day, which was celebrated yesterday.
Mhm.
We are so excited to have this conversation. I'm so excited. I can't speak on behalf of the collective, but I feel so strongly that we're on the same page with this. And we're going to get into that in one second. But friends, if you are here for the first time and you have not heard us talk about this yet, I want to let you know that on February 29th, we have something coming up that we think that you may really be interested in. For the first time, we're offering a live coaching workshop. It's called The Future is Whole Human Coaching. And we're going to be helping you understand what are some of the tools of coaching that you can use as a leader. And the best part, as far as I'm concerned, is we're also going to be doing some live coaching in there. So it's going to be a 90-minute live workshop. If you want to find out more about it, if you want to sign up and get on the list, spots are limited because it is a live workshop. So you want to head over to wholehumancoaching.com. And on the front page there, you're going to be able to find it. And also up in the top right corner, we're talking about it. So we look forward to hopefully seeing you there. Okay, now let's get on to today's Teamwork Tuesday topic. Today, we're going to be talking about things that trusted teams always do. And when we say trusted teams, we're talking about trust being a foundational element to that team. What are the things that they always do, whether they're doing it consciously or non-consciously? There are elements that they're doing. Teams that have a high degree of trust, also, they have many common traits of success. And so we're going to be looking at that as well. So to get us started, let's talk first about the pain of it. And it is a pain, not just a pain, but it is deep pain of people that sometimes show up for days, months, possibly years in environments where trust has been broken or betrayed, or they don't feel safe in that place. So can we talk about what that looks like and in some of the instances where we would see that happen?
Yeah, let me dive in. I've done a little bit of I did a little bit of homework today for once. I shouldn't say for once, but what's interesting when we talk about trust, I think it's important that we remember that it comes in at various different angles. So the trust can be amplified or breached between an employee and a leader. So the employee feels like the trust has been breached between that person and the leader. Then there's this idea of bidirectional trust, which is people in a team or employees in an organization have lost trust amongst themselves. And then the last one is really the leader or the leadership that has lost trust towards the employee. And each of those has different elements to it. So the one where myself as an employee, the trust is breached between me and the leader, you have things like feelings of betrayal, anger, disappointment, anxiety, and those can all lead to a really toxic environment. But one of the other elements that I was reading about was it hinders the ability to create healthy relationships and also for professional development. So it's bigger than just, oh, I don't trust you. Now, in terms of employee to employee, I shouldn't be doing the
Sorry.
It's terrible.
No, I have a question because it's interesting
Yeah.
what you said about it hinders professional development.
Right.
That jumped out at me. How would it hinder professional development, do you think?
Well, you begin to lose motivation. You
Mm,
begin to lose commitment to the organization's goals.
yeah.
You kind of lose sight. You detach from the vision and the mission that is there. So
You begin looking for the exit.
Yeah.
you begin looking for the
true.
exit. So we're speaking about the people of the organization, right? From those three angles. But when you start to think about the impact on the organization, you have issues around retention. You have issues around high turnover rates. You have you have the possibility of loss of intellectual property, right? You have that sort of lack of trust creates a lack of transparency, which can really cripple growth or cripple expansion. So it has a huge impact on the organization overall, and it's kind of mission critical stuff.
It
It
So,
is
is.
very, yeah.
Very
um,
much.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say this really relates back. We had put a survey in asking people
Right.
about trust in their
Oh, that's right, yeah.
workplace. And 60% of people who responded said that yes, that trust had been broken in the workplace and
right.
that had not been rebuilt.
Hmm.
And then there was 40%, fortunately, who said that it was not an issue. But nobody responded that it had been broken and they had managed to rebuild it. So what you're speaking of, Colin, is a very fundamental piece about the workplace and what's possible. Because
Yeah.
how I read that statistic is that people choose to leave
Yes.
rather than to figure out how to deal with
Yep.
this.
Hmm.
They leave, or if they stay, sort of productivity and quality go down. So
Yes.
so morale gets eroded, and then you stop
Yeah.
adhering to the values, and then quality goes down. And I think we don't have. I didn't think of any examples to bring, but there are organizations out there that we know that we've worked with, and not that you've seen that slow erosion of quality, and in some big brands even.
Yeah, for
Mhm.
sure.
And the other interesting thing that I was reading and looking at as we were sort of planning this discussion, what I forgot about the leader to employee trust breach,
Mm.
and how that actually can impact leaders' judgment and their confidence, and that can sort of push them into, well, among other things, but also sort of Stockholm syndrome. And we've seen a lot of that in the last year, where
Yeah.
leaders we've worked with don't feel they're in the right place,
Right.
or
So
they're imposters.
So they have the sense that they don't have the trust of the people who are working for them.
Mhm.
And
Right.
so that erodes their ability to lead because they don't feel like they have the confidence to do so.
Exactly. And
Really
then they start
interesting.
questioning themselves, right? And
Oh,
um,
yeah, that
uh,
totally makes sense when you think about it, right? Because you
questioning their
think about
judgment. Yeah.
yeah, which then further perpetuates the lack of any confidence or trust that people have in them. So it just becomes this like complete
Vicious
self-fulfilling
circle.
prophecy over and over again, like such a
Yeah.
vicious circle. Yeah.
Oh, did Carol just leave?
We lost Carol. Yeah, she froze. She'll be back hopefully. Okay. So
But it's interesting. Hey, we kind of took this topic from where we started last week, and the more you dive into it, the more it becomes, I think, apparent that this is such a critical, essential ingredient for leaders and teams and businesses that often I think it's kind of overlooked.
yeah.
I don't know about
Yeah.
you, but I don't remember any situation I've been in where it's like, oh, well, maybe where trust is kind of got to be first and foremost and
Yeah.
fundamental.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah. I've been in a
and
situation, and I've talked about it in the past. And now when I look back, retrospect is always hindsight's always 2020. And I think
Mhm.
about how that trust was lost. I didn't have at the time the tools or the understanding about it. So it was I had made it about me that I was that I was the problem, and you start to just have you start to make assumptions that things can't change, right? If you don't see the potential of something changing in that situation. What about Colin? When you so we talked about leader to employees,
Yep.
employees and leaders. What about
Yep.
employee to employer, like team, like people that are on at the same place on a team? What are some of the things around that about how the lack of trust shows itself?
Like inside a team, like employee to
Mhm,
employee.
mhm.
Well, that really, I was reading some of the research is about loss of morale, and the beginning of the creation of a toxic culture.
Hmm,
So
yeah.
you know when when it's in that same sort of I don't know, petri dish isn't a bad example, but when it's in that same group, that same circle, and the trust is so close to home.
Yeah.
You know, if you breach trust, or trust is breached with somebody that maybe is your leader and they have a team of 20 or 50 or 100, you might not feel what's the word? You might not feel that the impact of it as much. But when you're close in a team, you lose morale, you lose motivation, you lose engagement, right? That has a huge impact on the organizational culture that you're working within.
Yeah.
So and once you've lost that, then again, this adherence to the values and mission of the company are so important. And it kind of goes back to what we talked about a little while ago about our micro mission, and maybe we need to define that better. But you know, within a small team, they've got to have a singular purpose, a singular mission, something that they can all grab onto. But we can go back to that another time.
Yeah. So what's also interesting there is about in particular in the employee to employee situation. I mean, in any situation, there's there's always, like, I think that either maybe we all have narratives that we come to a situation. So we may have a specific bent towards certain type of people that we don't trust, or like, specific things that we're using in defense mode. But what I find interesting when we think about it is that there's often in the workplace amongst a team, there is an inciting incident, and it doesn't have to be a really big thing. It can be something really small.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like multiple, like death by 1,000 paper cuts kind of thing, where it's like the trust can be eroded over and over again. And I think about some of when, I don't know if you've ever had this in a work on a team where there's something that someone did that when you look back, you're like, actually, that was probably where the train track started to like take us veer somewhere, and how I related to them. And I think there's some common traits there as well about what happens. So, for example, if someone takes the credit for something, right, which seems like it's that's a trust thing, because can I trust you to share my ideas if you're going to take the credit for it down the road? If someone doesn't, all the ways that comes back to ways we may not feel safe in a space, and all the things that can activate things inside of us that will cause us to slip into reacting in a certain way.
Right. No, I agree. I can totally pinpoint those moments in time. And it's interesting. It's almost a human, it's almost I can't find the right word, but you intuitively, your gut knows it. It's like that blink moment, right? Your gut just knows it. You're like, oh, you just breached trust, even though, it might seem ethereal and not specific, but your body knows right away.
Yeah.
Certainly. And tells you in many ways. So we had spoken about what are the how do you, so trust is broken, right? And we see its impact. We had started to talk about some of the questions that you can start asking, like, how do you bring a safe, constructive, positive coaching conversation into something that might be broken? Should we explore some of those questions?
Yeah,
we can
let's talk
or ask them of each other.
Yeah, sure. And hopefully Carol will be able to join us again. We're both trying to keep an eye on it. Looks like she lost her internet, so hopefully she'll make it back.
Yes. Yeah.
So let's build a scenario. Let's we got
a question from Peter De Bruin. It cannot only be personal, but just witness your colleagues' grief can affect you too. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yes, that is actually a great point. Yeah.
Good point. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. When we pick up some when we're on
Hopefully,
behalf.
if we're empathetic enough,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure,
And we
for
recognize, I
sure.
think it's our justice meter. If someone's been being treated unjustly,
Mm,
if it, if we see that happening, yeah, I can totally see that. So okay, so let's think about a scenario in of how this would play out on a team.
mhm,
So how trust could be, let's say for example, you and I, let's say one of us is coaching someone who says, I feel like I have broken the trust of the people I lead, or my team members
mm,
in some way. I know that there's, or I said, even maybe not that far forward. Let's dig back a little bit. I feel like they don't trust me. Maybe let's keep it in that space
right,
for a second.
right.
So Carol's not coming back. So we'll go with, we'll just we'll stay the course here.
Hang out.
Yeah, we'll hang on. We haven't had a chance to have a conversation like this for a while, Colin. So let's
I
just
know,
say that
right?
we're in that, and you're coaching someone, and they say, "I feel like my team doesn't trust me." What are some of the questions that we would be asking that client, that person that we're coaching?
Yeah, I mean, certainly one of the first ones that would come to mind would be, how do you how do you think you can be forgiven
Mm,
for that breach?
mhm.
How do you think h Yeah, how do you think you can be forgiven or forgive, right?
Right.
It may
Mhm.
be kind of reciprocal. So
Yeah.
how do you forgive and and move forward, move on?
Yeah. Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know, and also it, I guess it depends on the volume of the breach, but what are your expectations for moving forward?
Yeah.
Those would be the two questions where I would
Yeah.
probably start.
Yeah. One of the questions that I would ask is if that was the starting point where they felt like they weren't trusted. I think one of the things that I would ask is, when is the last time that you felt like you couldn't trust someone else, and what were some of the common things there? Because that will
Okay.
that also helps us see that, um, pull things out that we may be blind to, that we might not be cognizant of, because it's always easier to see it in someone else first, and then to come
Hmm.
back and then to think about exactly like what you said about how can that be built. I think another important element to think about is when we look for feedback. So um
Oh, feedback. That's a whole
feedback is yeah, feedback is a thing that people think is so, like, everybody wants feedback. But when we think about feedback, there's a lot of questions around how we're eliciting feedback. First of all, the first thing
Mm,
that I would be asking about is the dynamic of the feedback conversation. Is there a power dynamic at play that is being basically put down on the table so that that's a safe space, and how do you build that safe space?
right.
um, Feedback, if you're looking for feedback, if you truly want to be trusted based on the feedback that you're given from someone, I would then, if I was giving, let's say you were my boss and I was giving you
Mm,
feedback, the thing that would build my trust is if I was able to be honest about something, and I'd probably only be slightly honest. So don't make the assumption that I'm being 100% honest, right? I'd
mhm,
probably only
mhm.
be slightly honest, because there's going to be an element of me that's going to be like, is this going to come back and bite me in the ass?
Right.
Um, and if I being honest with you, then how do you accept it? How do you receive that feedback? Because if you want me to trust you, then receiving it really means actually receiving it, and not putting up
Mhm.
all the defense modes about all the reasons, all the excuses, all the ways that you're going
Right.
to promise to do better. Just receive it and sit with it.
Yep. Yep. Um, Gosh, I mean, I think we could have so many episodes just on this one episode, because,
Yeah. Hmm.
feedback is so important. We last year we did a great workshop on performance reviews, right?
Mhm.
How to come at a performance review through coaching. We looked at the different angles of it, not of attack, but angles of perspective in terms
Mhm.
of trust and how it's breached. Um, the the other question that I would probably ask is, how do you what needs to happen for this breach not to happen again, right?
Yeah, fantastic.
What has to be built?
Mhm,
What processes? What?
mhm.
How do you change the performance review? How do you change the feedback loop? What kind of um, uh, oh, there's Carol. What kind of, what kind of actions do all parties need to
Mhm.
take to actively repair the relationship? What has to happen to make sure that breach doesn't happen again? And
Yeah.
what are the possibilities if it doesn't, right? Because I think also, kind of to end on a positive note, when you do have trust, right? And I think Carol's got some interesting comments from a book she's reading. When you do have trust, you can great things can happen,
Great things
right?
can happen.
And the ripple effect, the butterfly effect actually works.
Yes.
And so those would be the questions that I would ask from a coaching perspective.
Yeah.
Um, thank you for coming back, Carol. Nice to
Oh,
see you.
well, I lost trust in my internet.
I bet you did.
Yeah. Those things happen. So, Carol, we were just finishing up our conversation talking about what questions we ask someone, someone we were coaching, if they said to us, "I feel like I'm not being trusted by the people I lead." So we
Mm,
walked through some of those questions.
delicious
I'm
question.
curious as we
Mhm.
head down the home stretch here. You have some thoughts that we weren't able to get to earlier,
Mhm.
around, in particular, around radical candor and what that
Right.
means for trust in the workspace.
Well, just quickly, I was reading the book by Kim Scott called Radical Candor.
Mhm.
And it has been adopted in some ways in a very positive way. And of course, there's all the negative ways about it because
Mhm.
candor has its own flavor. I can be honest with you, which means I can be brutal with you, which is not
Yeah,
true. So this
yeah.
is about a gentle conversation. And I'm sure you covered a bit about feedback in this
Mhm,
regard,
mhm.
because really what we want to be able to do to be heart to heart with another human being is to be able to be honest with them,
Yeah.
have
Mhm.
the freedom to have those conversations, but we have to have created that space of relationship in order to be able to be to have that open dialogue
Yeah,
that occurs. So in the workplace, it begins with one-on-one conversations. It begins with those coaching kind of conversations,
right.
and then it can go to bigger meetings where their people are invited and included in the possibility of having a conversation where I speak my mind.
Yeah, yeah. But the important thing is that we we are whole humans, and we need those
Yeah.
one-on-one conversations. That
Mhm.
is how that's how value and trust is built. That's how connection is built, is through those one-on-one conversations. So we're going to be talking about that more next week on Thursday, the 29th at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And remember, if you want to join us, you need to sign up. And we just want to stress the fact the space is limited. And we would love to
Mhm.
have you join us. So you can head on over to Whole Human Coaching and sign up for it's called The Future is Whole Human Coaching. As well, this Thursday, it is back.
Mm.
We have a Thriving Thursday and we have a guest. Colin, can you tell us really quickly about Amanda, our upcoming guest?
Yeah, Amanda Ring is a fellow coach, but also a healer and a shaman and an individual with an enormous amount of experience. And this is a topic that is really near and dear to her. It's the bad. Um, Obviously, this caffeine is pretty strong because anyway, it's
Well, I left you in the lurch, Colin, sorry.
no, that's all right.
That's
That's
okay.
totally we're gonna have a conversation with Amanda about healing in the workplace and in the
Mhm.
workspace today. And so when these things do happen in the workplace where trust has been breached and and you are not feeling whole, we're gonna expand that conversation, because one of the things we also want to leave you with is remember that if it is breached and when it is breached, that we all are human, and you must take the time to heal.
Yes.
So on
Yes.
Thursday, we're going to dive into a little bit of that, that some conversation and tools and tips on how to heal and
Excellent.
give yourself
Yeah, I'm
time.
excited about it. Yeah, I'm
We
excited
always
about
rush
it.
things in life. It's crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So yeah,
fantastic.
Thursday's
Thank you.
going to be lots of
So
fun.
I'm looking forward to it, and we hope that you'll be able to join us. For those of you who are here live, thanks for sticking around this long. Don't forget that if you liked this episode or any of the other episodes you may have listened to, please consider subscribing and sharing the episode, as we want more people to understand the power of being a whole human and showing up in life and work. So until next time, thanks for joining us and have a great day.
See you
Thanks,
on
you too.
Thursday.
Bye-bye.
Thursday.